this is the introduction to Chapter 5. We're up to the balance sheet, and I like to just start at the very beginning of the chapter, where they talk about a proposed model for the balance sheet, and then they also mention the international standards for the balance sheet. Anyway, they're calling it the statement of financial position. I'm just calling it the balance sheet. So the proposed model would have three sections: business and financing, and then you'd have your income taxes, discontinued operations, and equity. Notice in the business section, you've got operating assets and liabilities, investing assets and liabilities. Then you get financing assets, financing liabilities. Okay, so that's a different way to look at the information that's provided on the statement of financial position or balance sheet. I would have to ask myself, and I'm sure FASB is asking themselves as they go through the process of possibly changing it, does this make it more useful or just weird? So that's my take on it. If you look at the international financial statement of financial position, and this is what is currently used, their setup is very different from the balance sheet that we're all used to. In the international financial statement, they start with the non-current assets, and they get their long-term investments, all of that, their intangibles. Then they go on to the current assets. And notice that the current assets, cash is listed last. It's almost in reverse order of liquidity here. And then you have your total assets. You go on and they do the equities next, and they use different terms than we do, but it's basically your stock, your share capital, and they use preference and ordinary rather than common and preferred. And they use the term premium, which are not used in US GAAP statements. So they do the equity and then go down to the non-current liabilities, followed by the current liabilities. So this is the financial statement that's used by a lot of countries at this point, and FASB may be moving in the direction of going more in that direction. But we do not have to worry about that right now. This chapter will give us enough to worry about just doing the regular old balance sheet that we know and love. Okay, so let's just take a look at the chapter. I cover things a little bit differently than Wiley does. The way Wiley does it, they have the balance sheet, the first three learning objectives, and then the statement of cash flows, and then they go back to the balance sheet. When I'm doing it and the way it's set up on Blackboard, I'm going to put these up with the balance sheet. That may be just totally illogical, but that's how I do it. So when you're going through, you'll find the uses and limitations, the classifications, all of this, and then that with the balance sheet. Okay, so our next adventure will be to the uses and limitations of the balance sheet.